Today, for my consideration, I saw Moonlight, and this was unexpected. Not really the movie itself, but the fact that it seems like Moonlight might be the most overrated movie at the Oscars this year after all. Well, how the turntables. I'm gonna get so much hate for this, or at least I would if anybody watched these videos. But yeah, Moonlight was just so overrated for me. Not La La Land, like everyone's saying. And I feel weird about saying that because I'm white, and I'm afraid someone's gonna see this and be like, well, of course you think Moonlight's the overrated one and not La La Land because you're white. You're gonna like the one with all the white people in it. But like, believe me, I would have loved for Moonlight to be better than La La Land. Mostly so that I didn't have to say I thought La La Land was better than Moonlight since I'm white. But okay, so I have some stuff I want to say about the movie that's a little bit getting into spoilers, and that has to do with some of the nominations, so I'll talk about that in a minute. So before I talk about that, I'll just skip to the end with the rating and stuff. I gave it a 6 out of 10. Now, that's not a bad rating, although I also feel like it's kind of a generous rating. I would have maybe liked to give it a 5.5 out of 10. But I already feel guilty enough about giving it that low rating as it is, since everyone's so hyped about this movie. I thought it was really boring. It basically just felt like Boyhood, but not filmed over 12 years and focused around someone with a harder life. And to be fair, I didn't think Boyhood was very good either. I think I only gave that like a 5.5 or a 6 too. And it's not that there's anything wrong with the formula of these stories. Well, actually, yeah, maybe that is it. Because when it's presented in this formula, it kind of makes it so that there's not really much of a story at all. It's just the person's life. And specifically in this movie, it just shows 3 specific segments of this person's life. And their life is kind of interesting, but it just feels like the life of a character in a movie. Not to say that there couldn't be a person with a life like this in real life, there probably is, but it just felt kind of formulaic, I guess. Besides the presentation, like, I pretty much knew everything that was going to happen as it was happening. It was very predictable, I think. I don't think Boyhood was predictable, but that's because I think even less stuff happened in Boyhood than in this. Boyhood was literally just some boring kid's life. It was a cool concept, though. Although I do think Moonlight's probably better than Boyhood, though. Just story-wise and everything. But that being said, it's nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. I guess it's based on a story or a book, maybe? It just says story. I don't know if it's a novel or whatever. It's adapted from something that was written down. And I think this story probably works better on page. So it's nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. I don't agree with that, because if it did work good on page, it didn't work good in the movie, because it was boring. Best Original Score? It didn't even feel like an original score to me. It felt like it was just reused classical music, which I guess it wasn't, but it felt like it, so that doesn't really feel like it's in its favor. Best Achievement in Film Editing. This movie had some weird editing moments in some parts where it would kind of freeze on a character's face before they say a line, and then the audio would continue as they say the line. I'm wondering if maybe that's why it's nominated. That was like kind of an experimental artsy thing they were doing with the movie. I didn't like that. It's cool that they were trying something new with it. I don't think it worked though. It had pretty good cinematography, I guess, so that's fine that it's nominated for Best Achievement in Cinematography. And I guess I'd extend that to Best Achievement in Directing as well, so that's also okay. Because like, I didn't like The Revenant, but I think I'm okay with the director, who I can't remember his name, winning Best Director, which he did for the film. Best Performance by an Actress in a Supporting Role for Naomi Harris in this movie. I can see why she was nominated. She's like pretty much the only character in this movie that I could see why they might want to nominate her for something. But then Mahershala Ali is also nominated, and I don't think that's a good decision, but I'll get into that in a minute, because my reasoning for that is kind of spoilers. So finally, of course, it's nominated for Best Motion Picture of the Year, which you can probably guess by now I don't think it should be nominated for. I don't think it was a very good movie, especially now that everyone loves it so much, and I just think it's super overrated, which is weird because everyone's saying that about La La Land, which I actually thought was only a little bit overrated, surprisingly. Yeah, this movie was kind of disappointing. I don't know what I expected, because honestly the concept didn't sound that interesting to me in the first place, but everyone was going on about it, so I was hopeful, but nothing really happened that made me think it was very good. Alright, that's pretty much it, but I'll get into spoilers now to talk about Mahershala Ali's performance. So, spoilers if you haven't seen the movie. I don't recommend it, but if you haven't seen the movie, just don't watch the rest of this review. Okay, so Mahershala Ali was barely in this movie, right? I mean, I'm not sure what happened to his character. I think after the first jump in time to the second act of the movie, he might have died or something. I think that's probably what happened. I think they might have said something about that. So he was only in it for like the first act of the movie, which I think was like the shortest act. And he was only in a couple scenes in that too. I mean, he was in most of the scenes in the first act, but still, like, he's already a supporting character in just the first act of the movie. And then he's not even in the other two acts. So even with that alone, I feel like he doesn't have enough screen time to even be considered for a nomination for Best Supporting Actor. But let's say for argument's sake that the first act of the movie is the entire movie, which doesn't really make sense, but whatever. Just for argument's sake, we'll just consider his performance in the first act to have been enough to be nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Even if it was, I don't think he really did anything in his performance that I think would be worthy of a nomination. I mean, it was fine, he did a good job, but he didn't really have any powerful scenes or anything, besides maybe the scene where he confronts Naomi Harris's character. But even then, it's kind of like Naomi Harris is carrying that scene. So he was fine in it, and so was Janelle Monáe, but he didn't really have a strong performance to me. Kind of just played an important character in the movie. So that's what I had to say about that. I think I might have had something else I had to say that was spoilery. I don't know, maybe I was going to mention that the character is gay, and that's kind of a spoiler, because I'm not sure you're supposed to know that at the beginning of the movie. It's kind of obvious, though, as it leads up to that moment in the movie. Like I said, it's pretty predictable. I mean, the audience is probably supposed to have figured it out, but just in case they weren't, I didn't want to spoil it. I think I was going to say, like, do people only like this movie because the protagonist is a gay black kid? I mean, I feel bad about saying that, but maybe it's just because that's such a diverse character that people are like, yes, this needs to win Best Picture. After 2 years of Oscars So White, a movie where the main character is black and gay, this totally needs to win. And I'm not even saying that as the audience. I think the Academy might be thinking that. I mean, they've clearly been worried about the backlash. Just look at the documentaries category of the Oscars this year. 2 of them are like intense civil rights documentaries. Not that those aren't good documentaries that probably deserve to be nominated. I wouldn't know, I haven't seen them, although 13th is on my watch list. So not that those aren't good documentaries, but just the fact that there's 2 documentaries like that. And then for Best Picture we have Moonlight, Hidden Figures, and Fences, which are movies with pretty much entirely black casts, except Hidden Figures, I guess. So it really feels like the Academy is like, look, see, here's your diversity, here you go. Please leave us alone. Again, these are all good movies, and some of them probably deserve to be nominated, but something like Moonlight feels like it was selected as the perfect movie to get people to, I guess, forgive the Oscars for the last 2 years. I mean, it's been going on for longer than 2 years, but that's when all the backlash started. Or I could be wrong, and they'll just have La La Land be Best Picture, and people are going to completely tear them apart, because Moonlight was right there for them to make the decision that could have saved them. But I'll get into that more in my Oscars predictions and picks video, which will be coming out on the day of the Oscars. If I can get it done, I'm not even going to be able to start it until I watch the last 2 movies of this for my consideration thing. Tomorrow I'm going to see Hacksaw Ridge, and then the day after that I'm going to see My Life as a Zucchini, if I can get my hands on it. I'm going to have to do the review for that, and then do the Oscars video in the same day, and that's already going to be a long video to do. So fingers crossed that I'll be able to get it done, but I really don't know. Like, I'm barely getting these videos done as it is. So just to recap, I didn't think Moonlight was very good. I still gave it a 6 out of 10. It did have some good stuff about it. Like, the story was fine, it was just really predictable. And because of that, it wasn't very interesting. So I don't recommend it, and I think it's the most overrated movie of the Oscars this year, honestly. I hate to say it, but I think that's the case. So yeah, tomorrow I'll hopefully see Hacksaw Ridge if everything goes according to plan. Alright, until then.